Here's the Lightning Mage I've been working on to try to get Arc to work. Arc just did not work for me, so I ended up using Spark instead. People have been requesting this build guide. Here's some gameplay on what it looks like. This is a tier 15 map. It's pretty much a brain-off, easy, cheesy build. The level is very comfortably in the campaign and then transitions into the in-game with 3 unique items. 2 of them are quite cheap. One of them is kind of expensive at just over a divine in price. Okay, with that being said, I'm going to break down all of it, the passive trees, the skill gems, and whatnot for you today. Please enjoy. So this is the Sorceress leveling and in-game build guide. This is a very easy build to use because you can use it in the campaign and then very easily swap over to like the in-game version of it just by adding some items on, and as you progress through the passive tree, very intuitive. I kind of raw dog just went through trying to make like a lightning mage that was stacking mana, very similar to like what I did in PoE 1 with my Palpatine build, and we started with Arc, but Arc just did not feel good, so we ended up using the other lightning ability, Spark, and Spark actually does feel pretty good. Spark is basically an ability that bounces off the walls just like this, so because of this, it is a very quick map clearer. I already have a boss killer in my warrior, so I wanted something that would let me kind of brain off, just walk through tier 15 maps, hold down the mouse button, and just like basically auto clear the maps, and that was what I was trying to get out of this build, and it accomplishes that. Now, it's also very comfortable to level in the campaign and transitions very easily into the later game. Now, in terms of itemization, it uses 3 unique items. One of them is admittedly kind of expensive. This is at least a Divine Orb. I paid 85 exalts for this item right here. While this item is not 100% mandatory, it does actually significantly improve the build. The other items, this right here, Ghostwraith, as of the making of this video, this cost 1 exalt and is actually one of the most important pieces, as well as these gloves only cost 1 exalt as well. I literally have both of these sitting in my inventory. I had the boots, the helmet, the offhand, and these rings in my inventory. So all I ended up buying was this item for 85 exalts and this wand for like 10 exalts. This isn't a particularly massively expensive build, but it is a build that you're going to want at least some decent rare items that have resistances, some HP, some mana. And you might be wondering why HP when we have only 1 life. We'll talk about the interactions and that way it works in a moment. But basically, you're going to want resistances, life, mana, energy shield. Pretty basic stats, and that is going to be your itemization, and we'll walk you through all of that as we go through it. Now, in the campaign, when you're leveling, you're going to be picking up Spark very early in the game. It's basically like the first gem you actually get in tutorial, and right off the bat, it's super easy to understand how it works. It bounces off the walls. They technically count as projectiles. Because of this, we're using acceleration, which increases the projectile speed, making it easier for it to bounce around. We're also going to use Pierce, one of the recommended supports, though Subtractem was in my chat earlier and was telling me he doesn't necessarily recommend Pierce and that you could go with Chain, etc., and use Mana Tempest. There are other variants of this, I suppose, but I'm just going to show you the way that I ended up using this and that's working great for me. And I will fully admit freely in the beginning of this video, I'm sure there's much better iterations of a very similar build out there. This is just what I stumbled across, kind of raw dogging it from the days of playing this game. So you're going to be using acceleration to increase the speed of the projectiles, Pierce in order to have these projectiles actually go through them, and we'll talk about all these gems and the way the build works in a moment. I'm using Inspiration in order to keep my mana costs up because we're using Archmage. I'll explain that in a moment. Controlled Destruction, which is just 30% more damage, but you can crit, and I'm using Lightning Exposure. Now I have all 5 sockets. If you don't have all 5 sockets, you can literally just start with Pierce, then add your Acceleration on when you can, Inspiration if you're having mana problems, Controlled Destruction if you want more damage, and then Lightning Exposure at the end of it as you're adding on more sockets. So that would basically be the order I would do it in. This one, then this one, mana problems, Inspiration, Controlled Destruction if you feel like you need more damage, and then Lightning Exposure when you can, okay? Those are pretty much the gems I'm currently using. Again, I'm sure there's better variations, but that's the way I'm using it. Now, Flame Wall is a very easy to understand ability. You actually are just going to put Fortress in here, which makes it a circle. And I'm just putting Fire Mastery, do +1. I haven't even bothered like figuring out the rest of this yet, but basically just put the Flame Wall up. You shoot the lightning through it. It adds more damage onto the sparks as well. So you can do this if you feel the need to have more damage, or you get to a rare mob and you need more damage. I'm using Orb of Storm with Overabundance, which has 2 orbs that pop up because of Overabundance. I can have +1, but they last not as long. And then that's just going to zap them with even more lightning. If you read this way this works, fires a bolt every 2.5 seconds, and when you use a lightning skill near the orb. So if you drop these basically on yourself and you're shooting out these, you're getting more and more damage from the Orbs of Storm. Now, now I'm using Overabundance so I can have 2 of them. I'm also using Persistence so it lasts longer because the Overabundance makes it last shorter, so that kind of counteracts that. And then Considering Cast gives it less cast speed, so it takes longer to go up, but does more damage. Pretty simple. I haven't maxed out all these other gems or anything like that. Now, I used Mana Remnant earlier on when I only had 30 Spirit in the campaign. However, then when I had 100 Spirit, I'm swapping to Archmage. You can't use more than just Archmage later on in the game because you're only going to have 1 Spirit due to the items or 100 Spirit due to the items that we're wearing that we'll talk about in a moment. But Archmage is like a primary portion of how this build works because you're going to be gaining more damage based upon how much mana you have. And we're stacking a lot of mana with this build. And we'll show that in the passive tree as well. So this is where mana stacking is giving us more damage. Conductivity is just basically a curse. You throw it down, it's going to lower their resistances. And I'm using Impending Doom, so it does like a blast when it expires. Magnified effect, so it's larger. And then increased effect with Heightened Curse. Pretty simple. I figured that would work for now. Mana Tempest you can use, which basically ramps your damage by making it cost more mana as long as you're standing in it. You can use this. I'm sure you can figure out some support gems to add into this as well. I only really use this if I'm desperate for more damage. It drains my mana way too fast at the moment, but I understand that this is something that people use a lot. Haven't really gone down the rabbit hole of making Mana Tempest work, and to be honest, I really haven't felt like I've needed it too much so far, but I understand that this is actually quite good. Lightning Conduit, you don't really need this. I actually hate this move. I was just testing it out. And then Lightning Warp is basically like a Culling Strike ability that lets you teleport to mobs, which I'm only using as like a get out of jail free card if I need to warp onto a mob that's about to die laterally anyway. None of these, like this move's not mandatory, this move's not mandatory, Mana Tempest isn't even mandatory, even though it seems to be good. I would consider Conductivity quite important for the yellow mobs. Archmage is like mandatory for the build. Orb of Storms, Flame Wall, works very well with Spark, and then that's really all of the moves. Okay, so let's go over the passive tree and how this works and interacts with the items that we have. So this is a lightning build that stacks mana and as much intelligence so that we get more mana and energy shield. So where are we going to take? We're going to take the nodes that are obvious for these things. So starting from here, we're going spell damage. We're going spell damage and intelligence, spell damage, and then lightning up here. And then I go up here, and I'm going to grab energy shield. Energy shield is stun threshold to help us from getting stunned, because getting stunned is basically death with this build. More max mana with Mana Blessing, more faster recharge of energy shield, and I dump down here to grab the extra energy shield intelligence. So real obvious notes, just like the free, easy, obvious, close ones. Over here, more intelligence percentage, very important for more mana. Mana regen, energy shield. Mana regen is going to be important too. We're going to be spending a lot of mana. So these are like just really free, really good nodes. The Sorceress actually has just really good nodes early on. Then you're going to come up here. I went right first, actually, and I grabbed all of these except the chaining. Now, if you're using like Mana Tempest, it actually makes your abilities fork, and you can add chaining and all that on it, and you can use chaining. But I'm not really doing that. I'm doing a very simple version like Spark. It just bounces a bunch of sparks everywhere. I'm not like getting complicated with the forking and chaining and all that. So I'm just grabbing these, which basically give me more damage and more shock, increased chance of shock, more damage. As lightning damage is extra code. And then here I go increase lightning damage, attack speed. These are all just super nice, easy. Also, it gives you a jewel socket here. All of my jewels are just whatever jewels I had laying around. This is not an ultra min-max build. I actually just got into maps basically today and went from level 66 to 85 very easily to tier 15 maps very easily and comfortably with figuring it out and piecing it together as we went. Like it's a super smooth build at the moment. And all of my jewels just happen to have energy shield recharge or faster start of recharge or more energy shield or curse duration or cast speed or literally anything that just works with what we're doing. Lightning damage would be fine, energy shield fine, mana fine, whatever you can get that's like associated with the build. Now, before I went left here, I actually went up. Again, another socket here, energy shield, crit, which strike, even though we're not critting with Spark, and damage taken from mana. Then go up here, I took all these lightning nodes. These are great lightning nodes. You get magnitude of shock. Magnitude increases the percentage that your shock does, and that's great because shock makes them take more damage. And then we have here penetration and lightning exposure. I'm using lightning exposure as one of my gems, so increase of that's great. And then up here, increased damage per intelligence, and we're going to try to get as much intelligence as we can. Went right here and just grabbed more energy shield. The 60% is a huge chunk, even though it's slower start, it's a huge chunk. I will grab this intelligence node once I level here again shortly. Went down here, grabbed the mana regen, increased max mana, increased mana cost of skills. Went down here, grabbed the increased spell damage per 100 max mana. Again, we're trying to get a lot of mana. Now, I did grab Eldritch Battery. And now you might be thinking, Well, wait a minute. That converts all energy shield to mana. So why do you have 6,000 energy shield if you're converting all your energy shield to mana? Well, this is where these items come into play. These two unique items have a really cool mechanic. And let me show you. If I remove both of these, you're going to notice I have no energy shield. That is because both of these items calculate their bonuses to energy shield after the Eldritch Battery calculation. So because of that, these two items are giving me 6,000 energy shield. Look at that. There it is. So the way this works, and Ghost Wraith had this really cool mechanic, and I have to explain one other thing before we talk about how these work, which is I'm also using Chaos Inoculation, which sets your life to 1, but makes you immune to Chaos damage. So you don't even have to worry about Chaos damage. Like one of the most annoying things in the game, it's not even a problem. It does not affect you. So because of that, you might be wondering, well, how does this item work then, this Ghost Wraith here? 50% of maximum life converted to energy shield if you have 1 life. Well, let me show you. Actually, the way it works is it calculates it as if you still had the HP. So if I remove Chaos Inoculation and we go back to 800 HP here, you're going to notice my energy shield stayed the same. I didn't gain more because I have more life. The game still thinks I have 800 HP for the purposes of Ghost Wraith. So this calculates before Chaos Inoculation. So I'm still getting that bonus energy shield. In fact, if I remove this, look at this, I go to 2,000 energy shield. That's 4,000 energy shield from that right there. But after Eldritch Battery, which is perfect, it's right between them. So Chaos Inoculation removes all my HP. I'm still getting the bonuses as if I had HP, so we can still build HP and still get energy shield off the HP from things like the belt, for instance. But then also, Eldritch Battery is not stealing all of that energy shield and leaving us with just 1 life in the bare naked openness where we're just going to get 1 shot. So it's kind of nice to be able to have both of them. The amulet, same thing. 24% of maximum mana is extra energy shield. If I remove that, you're going to see I'm going to lose, 2,300 energy shield. This is why, yes, you could run an amulet that's got like energy shield and resistances and all that, but the mana regen and the max mana is extra energy shield is definitely worth it if you can afford like a, currently 1.5 divine, rolled item. This isn't even, it goes up to a 30%. It's much more expensive for the higher rolled variants. This was the cheapest one, that I could afford at the moment. So the build will be worse without it, both from a Tinky perspective and a mana regen perspective, because how both of these items calculate and don't get interrupted by Eldritch Battery. And the reason Eldritch Battery is so great, like if I remove this, you're going to notice my energy shield goes up to 8,400, but my mana goes down to 1,800. So adding this actually increases my damage because I'm getting 800 more mana. And 800 more mana is giving me more damage from here, but it's also giving me more damage from the Archmage. So these two items just seem to work really well for me at the moment. Now, if you don't have this item, you could not run Eldritch Battery, which is going to give you less mana. You have a lot less damage, but you might be able to survive a little bit longer. And so this build, I think when you get towards the end game and you're able to more acquire this Everlasting Gaze item, that's probably when you're going to turn on the Eldritch Battery. In fact, you don't need Chaos Inoculation in the campaign. You don't need Eldritch Battery in the campaign. You don't need any of that. You can just level. In fact, I put Ghost Wraith on like as soon as I started the game. You can just level with Ghost Wraith just to give you the bonus energy shield, build out just normal items, whatever has resistances, HP, mana, go up here down the tree, just grab all these, go straight up, grab your lightning, and then start adding in more percentage energy shield as your gear starts to come online, as you're getting more energy shield. And then later on in the game, once you have these items, you can then add Eldritch Battery, and Chaos Inoculation can be added regardless of whether or not you have the amulet. And Eldritch Battery is sort of, I think you probably add that on, once you have the amulet. Now, I did run Chaos Inoculation pretty early in the campaign. I don't think you need to run. I ran this with like 1,500 energy shield. I wouldn't bother running this pretty early. I would just be grabbing your lightning damage, your energy shield, and just get items that are literally just resistances, HP, mana, intelligence, just damage, just normal rare items, and then add these on. I will say this glove right here, this is the current glove, and the way this works is it actually makes it where your lightning damage like straight up stuns them basically by hitting them. Their contributions from lightning damage contribute to electrical buildup. So they get stunned for like 5 seconds is the way electrocution works. If you look at this here, look at this. Prevents them from performing any actions in the last 5 seconds from default. So they're effectively stunned, and they're going to see they're like, zap forever, which makes leveling and going through the campaign super easy. And you only need level 26 for these. So you can actually wear these like pretty dang early. I mean, before you get to Cruel campaign or you finish even the first campaign or anything like that. And these are, again, the one exiled item. So both of these items can be worn early. This one right off the rip even, and you can immediately have like some very useful items in the campaign. Now, for the Ascendency, I went Stormweaver because it has bonuses to things that would scale off of mana. For instance, Arcane Surge. So the way Arcane Surge works is 10% more cast speed, 20% more mana regen. We're going with mana regen, but you also get increased max mana on small nodes. But then this one right here, increased effective Arcane Surge on you per 15 max mana. Again, we're stacking max mana on purpose because we're using the Archmage Spirit Gem. So there's a lot of synergy around this build that make it like super smooth to use. For the weapon, you're just going to want to try to get a lightning bonus to lightning spells. For the offhand, I'm using energy shield, mana, and resistances. For the belt, I'm using resistances, mana, HP. For the rings, really anything that have life, mana, resistances. The unique items I've already gone over. The helmet and the boots, again, mana, HP, resistances, with obviously movement speed on the boots. I am putting armor, evasion, and energy shield bonuses on like my helmets and chest plate as much as I can because I didn't really need additional resistances from those spots. But you could use those spots for resistances if you want. The item's cheap enough. You could just, buy another one later on to min-max a little bit more, switch the things out. These are only one Exalt uniques literally anyway. I haven't got an anointment yet. I'm sure an anointment would make this easier. I'm sure there's a lot other, skill gems I can add on and tweak it, and I can learn how to use Tempest and all that and the forking, and there's other additions I can have. But for right now, I just wanted to brain off easy, clear tier 15 maps because I'm trying to get, farm out some citadels and progress through the Atlas tree. And I just wanted to go through these maps like super easy and blast through. If that's what you're trying to do and you want something that's, a good map clear, a good farmer, that's what this seems to do for me. And it has tons of room to grow because this is literally my first day farming maps and it's already working pretty well. So that's about it. Hope you guys enjoyed or hope it helped at all. And have a wonderful day.